Good afternoon, Martin. Welcome to episode 66 of Illuminating Rounds. We're back, fresh from our holidays. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yeah, I had a couple of weeks off school. Didn't go anywhere, but I think some of us did. Some of the team went abroad.
Yeah. I was in the Maldives. Was having an amazing time. It's a very, very nice part of the world. It is as remote, as idyllic, and it's a beautiful part of the world for just unwinding from my otherwise busy schedule. So yeah, it was amazing. But yeah, it was all. But I missed Illuminating Rounds and missed ASL. But you've been playing. So
I've been playing a little bit. Yeah, I mean we've been a few weeks, haven't we? I think 3 weeks since we last posted. Yeah.
So yeah, we've got plenty to talk about. But the first thing we'll do is thank our Patreons as always. Big thanks, and we've got a new patron, Ryan Dukeman. Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate your support. The Scenario Archive appreciates it as well. Obviously, the money goes towards server hostings and bits and pieces like that, and also goes towards us doing some Patreon giveaways. We're going to try and we're going to set one up this time. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, about what we're going to do for the next episode, but that's coming up in a little bit's time. We've got some tournament news, Martin. So should we talk about the Play by Mail tournament first?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, go ahead.
So we have an exciting 3-way tie in your group, which, of course, we were looking for one winner on that one, and in the other group we had a one person won the group. So we had a couple of dropouts. We understand that people's lives get in the way, and that's obviously no problems at all. It happens. Thank you for everybody that played. So we've got Paul, yourself, Martin. We've got Jason, and we've got Tim and we're going to do a semi-final. So that's the plan. Now, obviously, 3 of you have been in the same group, so we're going to do a random draw for the semi-final. I don't have warm paper and cold paper, Martin. This is going to be as fair as I can make it in my shaky up.
All right. Yeah.
So this is for now. We're going to play, or you guys are going to play, because you are in the final.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited to know who I'm going to play.
Yeah. So we're going to play, or you guys are going to play Ragnarok, which is from Journal 146. And that's because it's the most balanced, most played scenario, only behind Elephants Unleashed, which is the most balanced.
So just to be clear, so this is a knockout round now, isn't it?
This is a knockout round, yeah. Okay, so number one, the first person will be playing. Okay, so it's Martin.
Oh.
We'll be playing Jason.
Okay, I played Jason.
All right, so that leaves Paul.
Yeah.
I know you guys have seen this backwards, but trust me, against Tim. So
it's right.
It's right for you. It won't be right for these guys.
Right, got it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we've got that. So Paul against Tim, and you, Martin, against Jason. So crack on with that if you can, in your own time. I mean, this.
Do people need to know where Ragnarok is? Sign up some main.
Jonah 146 is the
J146. Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
You can figure out sides and bits and pieces. You guys.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you can keep your log, I know log files are really hard for Play by Mail. If you can do it, that's great. If you can't, that's no problems at all. We have got some log files to go through, and we will go through them. Some people have sent some log files. I know Tim sent a few as well. So we will try and go through them, and we'll put them together as an episode. But plenty to talk about today, so we can't squeeze them in today.
Yeah.
So that's the Play by Mail one. You guys are playing for that great diorama that Ian's done.
I'm looking forward to lifting that above my head.
You all right?
Yeah, I just got a little visitor there.
Okay, all right.
It's fine.
Okay, all right. So the other the tournament we've got, which is now ongoing, and in theory most games should have been finished last month. I haven't been able to do mine yet. Richard's been trying very hard to get in touch with me, so that's my fault. But we've also had one dropout. Tomo isn't able to play in this one, which we understand. It's crazy times out in Finland at the moment. So Tom Repetti is going to look for a replacement. So what we're going to say is, if there's any patrons left that fancy joining this tournament, give us a shout, and we're going to give you guys a week from today, so up until next Tuesday. If we don't get any patron getting in touch with us, then we'll open it up to anybody else that wants to come into the tournament. So first come, first serve. So if you're not a Patreon, just let me know you'd like to be a standby. And if there's no patrons in the next week that would like to play, then we'll get whoever it is for a replacement.
Can I say, like, the opportunity to play the famous Tom Repetti? I mean, there should be people literally get on that email quick, because there's going to be a lot of takers for that.
I will clear some email space out just in case. All right, just in case. But yeah, so and Tom's very sporting. Didn't want to buy and Tomo, our thoughts go out with you, and we're thinking of you guys. So hopefully everything's okay out there. That's the most important thing.
I know Tomo's not been well as well. He had COVID and things like that. So I think there's a number of things.
Yeah,
perhaps. Yeah.
Okay, so next up is our bracket. So you remember our bracket? I'm going to put up an image now of the bracket. So we had a bit of a disagreement last time. Martin, what was the disagreement about? Which was the better module?
Oh, okay. Well, you win. Okay, you win. So I went for Camp Fruit Piper, and you went for
Doom Battalions.
No, Doom Battalions. That's right. And Doom Battalions was, I think, effortlessly won the poll. Yeah.
So I'm going to clarify some kind of like criteria here, because I feel it's a little bit unfair. So obviously the thing about core modules is you're getting the maps, which are kind of critical to the whole kind of system as well. But I've got to assume going forward that when we're talking about core modules, we're not rating them on the maps that you get, or even necessarily the nationality, because it's a little bit unfair, because obviously Beyond Valor, we wouldn't be doing anything without Beyond Valor, and so therefore it would end up being the winner. So I want to kind of think of it as, imagine if you had kind of all the equipment that you would need for any scenarios going forward, even if you didn't think this was the better module. So for example, to stop Beyond Valor winning everything regardless. So so the first question is, in terms of what we're thinking about, is the value of the pack, not in terms of what you would miss out if you didn't choose that. That's, I think, the core thing. So it doesn't change my mind on Doom Battalions. I think that was... No. But and Doom Battalions won the poll, so thanks for everybody that voted. 72%, 28%. So that's progressed. So we're now...
3 people for Doom Battalions and 1 for Camp Fruit Pipers.
It was. I did like the quote, "Slopes or nopes." I did like that.
We did have quite a few people who may or may not have gone onto the poll who replied in the various ways they can communicate with us, and it was always Doom Battalions. It was quite clear. A couple of people did make the point, that it's kind of apples and oranges. I mean, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? But it's for the sake of like, forming some opinions, and isn't it? So getting some ideas out there. Yeah.
I did. It did come across really that Camp Group Piper is like a proper ASL, like it's a ASL ASLs. It's like a proper module of and it is something I think we've got to play.
Difficult rules, everything. I mean, it's the mist and stuff like that just changes the game very dramatically. It's an ASL's ASL module, and it's very typical of kind of, was it Avalon Hill? Must have been Avalon Hill that published it. Very typical of them not to muck around with a kind of, right, we're going to do something nice and easy for you lot to move into campaign games. Yeah. Just something using all the rules. Yeah. Craziness.
Have you played any of the scenarios on the Camp Group Piper maps or anything?
Yes.
Okay. And you enjoyed it? I think, was that what you were saying was...
Yeah. I didn't fancy it, but I've played a campaign game as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't fancy it because of all I was much newer to the hobby and the whole thing of the mist and stuff like that. I kind of didn't fancy it. I thought it changed the game too much, but it was a lot of fun.
Okay. All right, good stuff. So now this is tricky. A collection of winter offensive packs, and by the way, we should shout out to MMP who do a great job of the winter offensive packs, because they all go. I think the profits go to charity. I know they had something for the Lou Gehrig's. I think was they did something for the veterans. They do. It goes to good causes, which is a really good thing. Against Streets of Fire. So Streets of Fire, the first attempt, and I guess ultimately failed attempt really at Deluxe ASL to try and bring miniatures into the game. What's your thoughts on comparing those two?
Well, I really enjoy Deluxe. I think Deluxe is brilliant, and of course, it's a failed attempt to bring miniatures in, but Deluxe has gone on with a slight sort of life of its own, hasn't it? But in terms of the winter offensive packs, I mean, you only get like a couple of scenarios, don't you? So maybe 2, maybe 3, or a push. but they're really, really good scenarios, and I love the way that they give you that kind of MMP kind of quality once a year. I think they're just perfect. They're just the right size and everything.
Yeah.
I think they're smashing little scenarios. So.
Yeah. It's a really tough one, isn't it? Because Streets of Fire, we've played a few of the scenarios from them, and they are
Good
big.
scenarios.
They're big and they're good. They're a little bit similar, I felt.
Yeah.
They've got.
I think the other thing about them is, sorry, go on. You carry on.
No. All I was going to say is the maps feel a little bit similar, and because there was so few maps, the configurations generally were quite samey, so it felt like it was a kind of very certainly because the things that the tractor works and things like that, where they're all quite kind of sloggy through the through the city.
And they tend to be very big, don't they? There's like a lot of counters, a lot of counter density, which they obviously perhaps saw as the benefit of those big hexes at the beginning.
What do you think about the rule in Deluxe about things like being able to declare hand to hand?
You see, I don't get why that rule should apply to Deluxe. I think it's a special rule. If there's, it's not that Deluxe. They're mostly presenting like Eastern Front sort of scenarios. It seems an odd rule to me.
I guess it was so they could make the stacks. You could put one stack as hand to hand and one stack as non-hand to hand melee. I assume. I don't know.
I guess, yeah.
But
it would be easy enough to introduce the hand to hand rules and to have an SSR on all of those scenarios saying that it applies. Yeah.
How much a difference do you think it would make to ASL if they introduced that rule to normal scenarios? Would it break?
Yeah, I'm sure it would do. It would change the nature of close combat. It would make it so deadly, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
In scenarios where very often it's just those close combats that go on for like 2 or 3 turns sometimes or whatever. It just wouldn't happen, would it?
It'd be by choice. So in theory, by choice. So you wouldn't.
Yeah, I suppose it would be by choice. Yeah, but you may not choose to do it, but your opponent might do it.
Yeah.
Do you think people would use it? I suppose it would depend on the situation, wouldn't it? I mean, it makes ambushes terrifying, doesn't it? I mean, if you're ambushed.
Yeah.
But then there's a difficult decision, isn't there? Because it's all very well going for the hand to hand because you've got the ambush. But that only works in your favour if you win it, doesn't it?
Right,
I mean,
right.
It's by no means certain in most situations.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm all for more decisions for ASL. I don't mind there being because every decision point, in theory, escalates the better players from the luckier players. If you're lucky or you're a good player. So it always feels a little bit strange to me that they've made that. I can understand the hex sides being different for the wall advantage and things like that because you can show that
you can do it.
easier.
Yeah.
But even then, I still feel like it wouldn't be terrible to have to do that in a normal game, but I don't know. So anyway, okay, Martin, what did you say for Winter Offensive?
I said Winter Offensive packs.
Okay, me too. But yeah, mainly I think because the other thing we haven't mentioned about them was the double wide boards that kind of got introduced. I think did they come from the Winter Offensive packs? I'm going to say that I think they did, but now I'm kind of double.
I don't know.
Okay, but anyway, I like them. I think it was a nice idea from and it was reasonable bite size ASL, so it was quite nice. Okay, so here's one for you then: Hacker Palais or Blood Reef Terror. Now I think this is a difficult one. So talk to me about this.
Okay, so I'm surprised you find it difficult because you are not madly keen on seaborne assaults. And it's the ultimate seaborne assault, isn't it? It's the ultimate seaborne assault.
That's very true. But it was a very different campaign than we'd seen. Like a campaign that was really self-encapsulated, this whole kind of thing. I'm petrified of it. I'm scared of Camp Group Piper. I'm petrified of Blood Reef Terror.
Do you know what? Yeah, Camp Group Piper, I could get my head round. Blood Reef Terror, I bought the guide that kind of explained it to you.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand the guide.
Did you need a guide for the guide?
To the guide, yeah. I think I would like to do it. But yeah, I'd agree. I'm terrified of it, and it's huge as well. And I think people have played it that it can become repetitive. Like okay, I'm going to fire this this gun at this landing craft, and you go through the little process, and now I'm going to fire another one, add another one, and there's an awful lot of that.
Yeah.
Just sort of like resolving these shots and stuff. But I mean, it's bold, isn't it? It's a hell of a thing.
So I've definitely heard that the game of Blood Red Terror is more in the setup for the Japanese, and then more that.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder whether or not you could publish a complete setup for the campaign, almost like a procedured instructions kind of like set up like this, and then you could just play it against yourself. You could just roll for the Japanese defenders shooting everything, because they're not going to do a lot of moving, and you could just attack it. And it would be.
I think that'd be so hard work, though.
Do you think?
So much, yeah. If you ever try and play ASL on your own,
yeah,
it's quite difficult doing like sort of both sides. I think.
So I've done that, and I didn't find it. I didn't find it terrible.
You're more intelligent than me.
No, no. But I didn't find it like impossible. I found it like you could kind of change seats quite, and there was I had a little system where if you had a hip gun, then I would roll each time the gun could fire. I would roll a dice, and if it wasn't that, then it wouldn't fire that turn against that unit and things like that.
I think what I find difficult is the mechanics of it on my own, of literally having to kind of roll the dice and think, well, what's going to happen now to the units, and then just that. It's not so much right. It's my turn now. I'm the Americans, or now I'm the Japanese. I can do that, but the mechanics of it, I think. When you're playing with somebody else, you actually help each other more than you realise. Yeah. But it would work. You absolutely could. If I mean, I'd be fascinated to set it up.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
So if anyone has a setup,
if I set it up, I want someone to attack it. I think I'd want someone else to attack it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say if anyone has a setup for Blood Red Terror for the campaign game, I would love to see that, and I would like to think at some point, no promises, but I would set it up on board and then attack it, and just to see what happened. I think that would be quite cool. But
do you know what? If somebody can send us a setup, one of us can be the Japanese and the other one can be the Americans, and we can perhaps play the first turn or two.
Or we could even do it where we both play both sides, because I don't think it's. By the time the setup is done, I think that's the kind of thing for the Japanese. It's not going to be an awful lot of.
Because it's very static. You think it's just like okay.
Yeah, we could see that. But I would love to see it all set up and
send it in. Send it in if you got one.
Yeah,
we'd be interested.
Having said that,
parlay.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, all right. I think it's brilliant play testers they had there. I thought absolutely stunning.
Yeah, they did. We did a lot of work on that. Rightly,
we played quite a few actually.
We did.
I don't think all of the ones we play tested ended up in the final cut.
I think we got confused because the one with the bike. I think the guy with we only remembered it about the guy with the bike, and I think they took the guy with the bike out of the scenario. I think
it was a bit of a strange feature anyway, wasn't it? It was,
and I think that was what always confuses. I mean, it's a great pack, isn't it? It was nice to see. I mean, there was a lot of work got put into that in terms of the designers and all the other play testers and everything. So
it's Lars and Timo were the brains behind that, weren't they? The energy behind that, should we say?
Yeah.
I just remember it's where skis really, really kind of come into their own. And I remember playing a scenario against you when we were play testing it. I can't remember which one it is, but the Russians were coming in with skis, attacking like a sort of finished position. It was like really, really interesting. Totally, it was almost like a different game. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah.
So my vote went Hackapale. I don't know about you.
Mine the same. I voted.
But I did feel like it was a tougher choice. But but yeah, definitely like to see more Blood Reef Terror, at least set up. I think it's a very pretty one to look set up. All right then. So the last one then for today, Solitaire ASL versus Armies of Oblivion.
All right. Should I start with Solitaire?
Yeah. I
couldn't get on with it.
You couldn't.
It's genius. The system is so clever. It's so well designed, and I've tried to learn it and I've tried to play it, and I just find I just never managed to start off with a lot of enthusiasm. By the end, I'm just struggling with it. I think it's I'm fine up until you start trying to incorporate those rules about control. And that's kind of that point. It's like almost like a rule too much. My brain shuts off.
I completely agree with you because I played it. I love the where you had the like kind of the company and it kind of goes through the war and you
I think
kind of
that's
do it.
very good. Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
And I remember being absolutely terrified of tanks because I had no armor and I had very little anti-tank stuff. And then suddenly you'd be a tank, you'd be like, oh my god. I kind of would kind of forget to apply the command and control rules because I found it was just too limiting in that you were too grouped up in the point where it made attacking like on a very wide front very, very difficult. And I mean, there was, I'm going to say hundreds of, 50, 60, 70 question mark counters on my map. I remember at one point. And I was like, how, and I know that, a third of these, 2/3 of these aren't going to be real, but you go through it and you're like, and then suddenly you get this bad random activation number and something bad happens, or whatever. And just being like, okay, well, that's all over. But I did think, and I have thought about this as well, a little bit like the Blood Reef Terror one, I would like to set it up again and maybe I would run the AI, if you like, against you attacking it, and we could just play through a scenario. And perhaps we could do that as an episode once.
Do you know what? I think it's a really good idea. Yeah.
Just to kind of go through it because I think most people have no problems getting opponents, I think, thanks to Vassal for ASL.
Yeah.
But I wonder if people are drawn to Solitaire ASL and play, lots and lots of it still. I don't hear.
I think there are different reasons to be drawn to it. I know Nick plays it sometimes. Okay. Our local player Nick Ransom plays it. He certainly used to play it sometimes. And I think that company. Do you know there's Legion on the Game Squad forums? I don't know if he posts anymore. He's got extensive experience of it. I mean, he took his infantry company, German infantry company, from Poland right through to, I think, Normandy or something, or Kursk or something like that. And it's all online as well. Legion's got it all like the after action reports in detail. Well, there are so many people that go for it.
They had the group Solitaire, the GSASL was quite active for a little while, and you would all kind of play the same kind of scenario and then submit your results, and they would kind of work out. And I don't know if that's still going on anymore. But feel free to post and let us know if it's still going on.
Isn't there a calculator that works out what happens when you do something in? So I think
I was talking about the war in itself, like the group Solitaire guys would get their results together, and then once they all submitted
what I mean is I think that somewhere, because the rules are quite complex, to work out quite simple things like, right, is something going to fire at you? You kind of input the data and it just works out for you.
Yeah. There was definitely an assistant. Solitaire assistant.
We'll have to talk it through and do something about it, because there might be people out there who are interested in it that don't have it. Of course, it's not. You can't get hold of a new copy anymore. It's not being published, is it? I think it's unlikely to be ever reprinted. Perhaps, I don't know.
That's right. Yeah. So I've got both editions. I think the first edition and the second edition. I know the second edition is really quite hard to find these days. But yeah, we should definitely do a Solitaire ASL episode one time.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to that.
Yeah, and we'll play that through.
So should we move on to not voting for it?
So Armies of Oblivion. Let's talk about that then.
Okay.
What do you think? What did you think about Armies of Oblivion?
Yeah, Armies of Oblivion's great, I think. Yes, it's good.
I'm just going to look at the scenarios for it to kind of remind myself of the because I always kind of get it confused with Doom Battalions, and that's it's got
which is wrong, really, isn't it? Because they're really on different sides.
Let's have a look.
Sides of the Uprising. I think that brings.
Okay, so they added the partisan scenario, so liberation of Toul, ambush, the Globus raid, Sylvan Death, the Old Town, subterranean quarry.
Some odd scenarios there. Subterranean quarry is a very unusual scenario.
Right. Yeah, that's the
one
with
the
in
the woods, though. That was quite good. I enjoyed that. It's a very simple scenario.
So I remember Prelude to Dying, and I remember Ancient Feud, I think, were the two, maybe Hands of Steel. So, I mean, good scenarios, plenty of them.
And it's some very, very interesting situations. You've got like checkmate tanks, haven't you, and cavalry, I think, in a couple.
Right.
Things that aren't mainstream ASL.
Yeah.
And go right up to the end of the war, right up to, by the end of the war, that, Romanian troops.
Yeah.
Are not really that sort of second line kind of quality that you get earlier in the war and stuff like that. So it's
Right.
I think it's quite a variety there.
So an easy win for Armies of Oblivion here. Are we
Yeah,
saying?
I think so. I think so. Although it's a shame in a way, because I think there's something about the the Solitaire that's genius.
All right.
But I'm definitely voting for Armies of Oblivion.
Yeah, me too. Okay, all right. So nice three easy decisions for us there. So we'll
Yes.
move on next week to the next set. Next up, I want to talk about scenarios and the value of scenarios.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one because we're obviously very, very pro everything ASL. We love ASL. It's very hard to come up across some stuff that people don't like. And I mean, I think the stuff that unanimously kind of brings ASLs together is, for example, when people feel like they're being ripped off with a scenario that's already been printed again, or maybe very small changes to it, and things like that. And most people can get behind that. And I also feel like there is a kind of an understanding that a scenario is about £2, $2 a scenario, which in of itself is a crazy underestimation of how much effort goes into designing scenarios and getting playtesters in there and even printing them and things like that. So we take for granted, don't we, that scenarios are relatively cheap to buy. So the first question is, how much should a scenario be worth? And when we talk about, like, for example, a pack of, let's say, 10 scenarios, what's our point about, is it good value for money? Do we care about the value for money? Because, I mean, I've got, like you have, Martin, cupboards full of ASL scenarios. I couldn't tell you how much each one of those cost, whether it was £2 or £3, $2, $3, whatever it was. And it doesn't, at this point, matter to me because I bought them and they're there for me to play. So does it ever come into your thought process, and what should a scenario cost?
I don't think so. It doesn't come into my thought process. I mean, I sometimes think when I'm stood there and there's loads of ASL stuff I don't have around me, like how much can I afford? I might sometimes think, well, what's reasonable for me to spend? But the thing is that £2 or £3, I guess $3-4, whatever it is, it's bearing in mind that game would probably take up on average 5 hours of your time, including you thinking about it, planning it, and then you've got stuff like you get together with a mate and go and have a pizza together and stuff. All that kind of stuff that comes with it. You're looking at like almost like a day of enjoyment out of that £2 or £3. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy value. I suppose it's worth remembering, of course, that you probably won't play all of them. If you bought a pack for $12 to $15 and you paid the 10 scenarios, you've got 10 days of enjoyment. And you could pay 2 or 3 in a day, I know, but you've got hours and hours. That's crazy good value, isn't it? What would you? The question is, I suppose, is like, what would you pay? Bearing in mind, as you say, that there's a lot of time gone into producing that scenario, which may end up with like one playing on Raw or something like that. Is what would you pay for that much enjoyment? So if you actually, instead of paying for the scenario, you played for the game. Okay, so we agree we're going to meet together, we're going to play Downsizing the Uprising for Arms of Oblivion. We tell MMP and they charge us something just for that one playing. That'd be an interesting thing, wouldn't it? If it was £50, I'd go 25 quid each with you. Do you know what I mean? For a day of ASL, who wouldn't? You know what I mean? But of course, I'm not suggesting MMP charge 50 quid for one playing. But in a way, that's like if you're going to go to the cinema or something like that, you end up paying those sorts of prices, and you got a couple of hours, and I don't think I don't even enjoy that as much as I'd enjoy this. It's interesting, isn't it? Very interesting.
It's a really tricky thing. So I completely agree with everything you're saying. Everyone thinks, okay, well, look, £2 is, we know it's cheap. It's a great, £2 for Hill 621, for example. I mean, now I get it. You've got to buy your nationalities. You've got to buy your map balls. You've got to buy all the components. I mean, there's a sunk cost in there to get to that point. But we're assuming at this point that people have, for example, the maps, or they have Vassal. I mean, you could talk about Vassal, and we could just buy the scenarios, and and I appreciate that we should always use all the equipment that we own on Vassal to make sure that we all stay completely legal. But it's interesting because we get used to very, very good value for ASL. So, for example, I'm thinking about like the Schwerpunk scenarios where we were paying, I think it was $20 or so for I think
right,
it was about 10 scenarios and analysis. And I think that the analysis was quite good. Some people felt it wasn't great, but it was there might be a historical article in there as well, which seemed really, really good value. If you said to me, here's a really, really, really well made scenario, and it's just a scenario card on its own, and no one can guarantee balance, but we're going to say it's it's balanced and everything, and it's £10 for this one scenario. That's got to be a good scenario, hasn't it? That's got to
be a good scenario. And I think the problem with that is, now, if somebody made that offer, I would be interested. Okay, so they're sort of saying, look, this is exciting, this is well balanced, it's really carefully put together. So there's no careless mistakes. There's no bits where you're going to read the SSR and go, oh, it doesn't really fit in with the rules. So all those things. But then the key one is whether it's exciting, interesting, and all that, and that's subjective. And two people can play a scenario, and one pair can have the greatest time in the world, and the other's that's a bit of a naff scenario.
Right.
It's all right, it's balanced, but it was a bit boring, So I don't know how you can qualify it to say, right, definitively, this is a scenario worth 5 times what you pay for everything else. I don't know how you can do it.
Right. And so the reason we're talking about this is because it's amazing that we've still got new publishers coming into the hobby, and we should be very supportive, and we will support the guys. And so the Hazardous Movement guys have come along, and they've said that they're going to produce packs that are high quality. And now for the UK market, so obviously we're talking about the UK market, the scenario pack, which is 10 scenarios, is priced at £33.95. So
£34.
Yeah. And again, that's not direct from the publisher, so I know that the third parties are taking their cut and bits and pieces, and that's understandable.
Yeah.
But it's 10 scenarios, and I think there's a little bit of tactical kind of guidance perhaps as well. And the question is whether or not that price point is going to be appetizing to people, or whether or not we are used to lower cost. And again, the other thing that we should remember is that when we were buying those Schwerpunks magazines 10, 15 years ago, it was inflation, and it was not quite what it is now, and those prices do go up, and we know that printing costs have gone up. So the question is whether someone like the Hasmo packs are going to be value for money, or whether actually we value scenarios far too cheaply these days. So we think what we will do is we will buy. I know we can get one of there's one scenario that's available online that we could play. However, that one does look quite a long scenario. I think it was like an 11 turn scenario. It's quite a long scenario. So we thought, well, maybe we'll buy a pack and we will kind of give it an evaluation. Now, the other thing about packs, and the thing you kind of touched on it, if you pay £20-30 for a pack and we only play one scenario from it, then it is a questionable, it is quite an expensive, £20 for a scenario. And it's not unusual. I'm not suggesting that Hasmo Pack has this, but it's not unusual that two of them might be a night scenario. One might be too big. One might be too small. This one's got too much OBA in it. We're a little bit fussy. There's a Goldilocks kind of thing where, okay, I'd play this one or this one kind of thing. Maybe there's only two in there that appeals to us. So we will do that evaluation where perhaps you and I will buy the pack. We'll take a look at what we would likely play, what we might play like on a day, what we might end up playing, what we might just never play, because there's always something else to play. And then perhaps we'll give the pack away as a Patreon as well. That's the plan.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so we'll buy one and we'll give one away.
I look forward to that.
Yeah. And then the question is, my last question around this is, what would, if and I know you kind of said this, that you would potentially pay crazy money for a scenario, but let's say, for example, there was a scenario that was £25, $30, $35, expensive, but maybe like the equivalent of a PC game kind of thing, so big. What would you expect from that scenario? Would it be a campaign game with its own maps and with its own, because that's effectively what
Yeah, you see when I talked about that sort of £25 thing, I'm thinking about, I'm kind of comparing it to an experience, like sort of going out for the day. You go to a fun fair or something, go lots of rides or something like that. I'm comparing it to that. I think comparison to a computer game is really good, because But the thing of the computer game is that you can replay it and you play it for hours and hours and hours and hours. Whereas a scenario, however big it is, once it's done, that's kind of it, isn't it? You're likely to put it away and not get it out again. What would I expect from something that was actually that expensive? I mean, one of the problems is that there's a good chance things would be pirated. I mean, not obviously, don't think that that's a very good idea, but you make something that expensive, it's more likely to happen, isn't it? I don't know what I'd expect, Dave. That's ridiculous.
So, for example, would you expect like a scenario that had like branching kind of options to it? Because we've seen before things like false pulls that you can buy points. Would you? Because this kind of ties in my last question.
Definitely want a bit of pre-game preparation,
right?
To spread out that experience. So if I'm meeting you on Wednesday to play, on Tuesday I'm getting the boards out and I'm thinking about my purchases and which building am I going to rubble and stuff like that. You need a little bit of pre-game planning, definitely. Yeah.
And the next thing is for example, how much replayability would you expect from that? Because you're going to get this scenario and we play it once. Now, if you played like, for example, Red Barricades, well, you've not quite infinite, but there's huge amounts of replayability of something like that. And so could you get that into one scenario, or would the scenario be, it would have to be like a scenario that is played, but it has like kind of like a reset phase, like a mini campaign?
I think replayability is very difficult in ASL because there's so many other things out there. I think it's very rare that you go, do you know what, that was such a good game, let's play it again. I don't know that we've ever said that. I mean, I have played some scenarios more than once, but usually like a couple of years apart, and there's a sort of a reason why it's sort of like come up again. I can't imagine finishing an ASL scenario and then just going, that's so good, we're going to play it again, because it's bound to come out differently.
Right. Yeah.
I find that I don't know how they would achieve that. It'd be great if they could achieve it, but ASL, the system, is replayable because you don't have to play the same scenario.
Right.
That's kind of the thing.
All right. Well, I'd be interested in other people's opinions what's a fair value for a scenario? Is there a market for not beyond the Hasmo packs? £5-10 a scenario. I mean, are we ever going to see a pack where deluxe is the wrong word, but a deluxe scenario where it's somehow $10 worth of scenario value? Because we know that, exactly as you say, Martin, the value of a scenario well put together and the value of a day playing that scenario and enjoying yourself is more than $10. We'd almost pay that on a coffee on the way to each other, or a beer afterwards, or whatever it might be. So it's crazy to think that we shouldn't pay $10 for a scenario, but we know that the hobby couldn't support that. So I'm interested in people's opinions of value, and whether there's any ground for like an in-between perhaps of a campaign and a scenario that gives you that kind of...
I did have one other thought, actually. I was thinking about like children's toys. Like sometimes I remember my children just seemed like they just so much at one point, because like their pet grandparents, their aunts and uncles would buy them stuff at Christmas and stuff. And like how I sometimes thought, what we really would like them to have is a better relationship with a smaller amount of toys, a more creative one. Maybe we are just too spoiled. We got so much. And some of the best days of ASL were sort of playing you, and I used to play sort of as David Schofield sometimes, and Tim Bunce. But basically, a new journal would come out, and I'd play all of the scenarios in it, more or less, virtually all of them, either with you or one of the other guys, and that was giving me like incredibly good value. I didn't really think about it at the time. Incredibly good value, and I didn't need all the other scenario packs because I was playing all of those. I mean, maybe there's something. There's something in that. I mean, literally, I'll go through a scenario pack again. I don't fancy that one. One. Oh, this one's a maybe. Do you know what I mean? And that is all the value I get out of that scenario, because I never look at it again, because I've already decided it's not one I fancy playing.
And as we've talked about in the past, like when we used to do the random scenario pickers, just picking something completely random that we wouldn't necessarily have picked, we had great games.
We had great games, yeah.
So it is a case of we should be more open to the scenarios. But then, would you want to see it where, for example, no more scenarios got produced? I mean, that would be a terrible thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it probably would be. But as people are very fond of saying, you often hear people saying, having said that, they wouldn't run out of games to play, would they? They'd still, there's going to be a lot of games left over at the end of our lives, isn't there? Unplayed.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Okay, well, I'm interested in all your thoughts on that, and feel free to open that up to a discussion. Okay, right. Okay, Martin. So you played Toby recently in Toby's very own scenario.
I did.
You learned all about how to defend. So
yes,
let's see if you put into practice what Toby taught you, and talk us through the scenario.
So you can see the scenario now, can you? Everyone can see it. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so the first thing, right? So this is 5-0 sync from Frank Terreur. This is actually the scenario is Frank Terreur 3-1-1, and of course, I wanted to play Toby this scenario because it is our very own Toby's. Toby wrote this scenario, and the real joy of it is very short. It doesn't last very long. Okay, but theoretically, before we rolled a dice, it was possible that I might beat Toby in his own scenario, and that's what I enjoyed that more than anything else. Anyway, so this is the setup. Obviously, I'm the Germans. The victory conditions are that the Germans win at the game end if they are in control, if they possess a gun with a non-broken crew, and there are 2 German guns, and essentially you've got 3 positions. You can see the Germans have these sort of three positions like this.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is a pretty much entirely a dummy position, and the other 2 are real. So he doesn't know when he sets up to attack which ones are real and which ones are dummies. And in fact, the real ones are this one and this one. And this isn't what you recommended, because you thought, and Toby spoke to me about, he talked about this at the end, he felt that this one and this one support each other better.
Yep.
But I thought he would guess it was that one and that one.
Right.
So if I did it that way, I thought it might throw off his attack. So he can enter on any board, any side of the board except the top, as we're looking at it, which is the north edge. So he can enter from the left, the right, or the bottom. But everything has to enter from the same edge. And if I just press this a few times, I think you'll see his units being set up. Okay, and off.
So how could you win without a dice roll being? What was that about them?
So, because it was still until we started rolling dice, and then it becomes obvious probably who'll win. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like, until we were playing, it was possible I was going to beat him. Okay? But once we were playing, that's not quite true. It's it's quite a close game, actually. Anyway,
right.
Let's,
SSRs.
Right. Special rules are guns can't set up hit, but they are emplaced.
Mm-hmm.
Bore sighting is not applicable, and the US mortar has a rate of fire of 2 instead of 3.
Okay,
that's it. I mean, it's actually in lots of ways it's a very, very straightforward scenario. I mean, the Germans have the usual sort of range of sort of machine guns. We've got some foxholes, 3 foxholes, and you can see where I've set them up.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Toby couldn't see that because the way we were playing, Toby prefers to play on a board, and we tell each other how we're moving. So those obviously would have become you'd just seen them as the game progressed. But the Americans have a hero, very good leadership, a 9-1 and 8-1. They've got bazookas, and they've got a DC, and that light mortar that's mentioned in the special rules. Right.
And it's worth mentioning that this scenario is from the same pack as Toby's article was produced, Le Franctier.
That's correct, yeah.
So that was.
So I mean, this is worth buying because of that defensive guide. I think for basic and intermediate players, I'm sure good players would enjoy reading it too. But I mean, I certainly got quite a lot out of reading it.
Okay.
All right then. So is that moving on? It isn't, is it? Here we go. Page down, isn't it? Right. So he's starting off. He's scouting at my dummy position. I do have a couple of. Oh no, it's not my dummy position. That's right. So he said he straight away realised that was probably a real position. Although you have got some allowance to kind of have like 1 or 2 units in the dummy position. Anyway.
So you so you shot them.
Yeah. So the thing is, sometimes you're seeing a little bit of movement and stuff. It's where I'm just organising the counters, because obviously all I know is they're concealment counters. He's not revealing it in the normal way. I have to, he has to say that's a 3-3-7, and you're not seeing Toby's rolls either, of course. But I think we managed to break him. Yep. So I thought first blood to me. Now these guys, they're approaching quite cautiously a dummy position. Of course, he's starting to realise that now. He starts to move through, but there is one real unit. Okay, so he's. So
you might catch. So presumably you might catch one out.
That's the plan. That's the idea, really. I think, yeah. But at the end of the turn, he's pretty much established that it's not even the end of the turn. He's still got some more units to move, and he moves them like that off board, which is pretty good, pretty sensible. And of course, I think they advance on. So all those units at the bottom there, they're the ones, of course, that I don't yet know what they are.
Yep.
Yeah, he manages to pin me, breaks the guys in the sort of dummy sort of position. And so next turn, I'm thinking already I've got to think about trying to stop him crossing roads and things.
Right. So you didn't think here at this point to turn. So I noticed your gun is pointing in the wrong direction. Both guns are pointing in the wrong direction.
That's right.
Presumably at this point now he knows these are your guns.
Yeah.
Did you think about spinning the guns around?
Yeah, so it's my turn now. So I think I'm going to do it. The problem with it is that it will reveal it. And I remember thinking afterwards, was that wise? But I think it's they're pointing in the wrong direction. So they've obviously got to change. Yeah.
The K6 guys presumably are still out of line of sight, so they might be able to spin.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know if I do. Let's see. It's my turn now, I think.
You could have done it in defensive fire, but I understand that.
I could have done it in defensive fire. That's true. Yeah. Looks like I'm doing. Oh, I'm trying to move it.
I like that you're surprised.
What would I be doing that for? I think I wanted to move it away, so they could the infantry could protect the building and he'd be further away, firing away. But anyway, it fails. It doesn't work. Okay. So I'm just kind of repositioning. Yeah, getting ready to. So I've got my advances still to come, I think. Yeah, these are my advances. Okay, so there we are. So that's my. Right. So I'm really trying to protect a direct attack across kind of U5, T4, I suppose. But I'm advancing to that foxhole. Okay. Okay, so it's now Allied turn 2, and of course he's going for the smoke, and he's running across like that. So I end up not really taking. Okay, we had a little bit of confusion about where he was moving. He was moving through the smoke. So I ended up not taking any shots at him. I thought he was on the other side of the smoke, rather than moving through it. We had a little bit of confusion. Then the guys over in the other building up a nice big fire group.
It looks like he doesn't have a lot to take on the left-hand side.
Yeah, well, this was the plan. I make a big blunder a bit later, actually, on that side. I mean, that was the whole idea of that is that he's going to have all his force ready to take the other two in line, if you like. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm hoping. Well, I've turned that gun. Obviously, it'll lose concealment. I've turned the other gun now.
Right.
You can see that. So I've obviously perhaps done that in prep file or something. Is that moving? It's not doing anything, is it? No. Sorry. Oh, it's because I keep pressing the arrow instead of... Here we go. Right, so those are his advances. So he's now very, very well established across the road. Frightening, those guys, there's the hero in there, there's this enormous firepower. So I'm not sure how I'm going to hold him back. But...
If you try to move that gun, you may be able to TI there. I'm not sure if you were able to
Yeah.
spin.
Well, what the one in K6?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did try to move it before, but I didn't. I've given up on that now. I think it's still got the Labour counter on, but I'm not trying every turn to do it. Now I go for this. Now I think this was a mistake. Okay, 2 reasons it's a mistake. See the guys up here.
Yep.
Right. So in there is a squad of light machine gun and a 7.0 leader and the CX. They're going to get all the way to, I think, to here, and they'll be able to advance into R1. Mm-hmm. It's a mistake for 2 reasons. I think this is where I should have been making my proper stand, because that's where he's weakest.
Yep.
I kind of feel as though I've got a chance over here. Like I've kind of got a bit of a wall. I want more infantry over there to hold him back. That was my thinking. Okay. The other reason it's a mistake, you'll see in a moment. You can obviously probably guess what this is. Yes, you see what's going to happen here. He gets a shot here.
Oh, that one! Ouch.
Yeah. It's not as bad as it could have been.
Right.
But I lose the leader, and I think I think the squad it comes a half squad. That's right, it's a half squad. Yeah, so not I. So he can't go any further, of course, because he's already moved too far. Done a good job with his mortar. It's actually in the historical description. They actually take one of the guns out with a 60mm mortar.
Right. And of course, because any critical hit, isn't it? Is an automatic destruction.
Exactly, yeah. And he's got it perfectly positioned. And all he's got to do, he doesn't have to have a critical hit. All he's got to do is break the crew, potentially to win. So that's got me nervous, got that thing sort of starts whacking away at me.
In theory, I'd rather be on the 88 side against the mortar than the mortar side against the 88.
Well, that is true. You see, the other thing is, I'm a little bit worried because there's a lot of hindrances between us, so we're likely to miss. I'm a little bit worried about malfunctioning it because I'm thinking I want to be firing it at the infantry when he's closing in on me to get the kill, kind of thing.
Right.
And that's the plan with the other one as well. The one with the stupid Labour counter on it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm pushing it. So I think, do you know what? I've got a little bit of a wall of infantry. I'm not doing too badly here. Toby did loads of opportunity firing that I couldn't understand why he was doing it.
Right.
And he explained to me afterwards that obviously if you opportunity, because he's opportunity firing units that are that can see unconcealed units. Right. So if you're going to take away their movement, surely of course, one of them's got like a bazooka in one of the situations, and this one's going to have a leader like move in there or something. So there were good reasons why he was.
And is it opportunity fires don't take the backblast penalty?
That's right. That was it. The bazooka saves them from the backblast, and it's a much better shot. Yeah. Though that this isn't that in this situation. It's a little bit later on, I think, that the opportunity fires did. Got the using smoke here causes the morale check, doesn't it? Which is really good. Getting into that building. Now I kind of hope that building on the left is that at some point they're going to have to move adjacent to the gun, or move into sort of K9 and sort of break me with firepower. Right. I'm kind of thinking either way, I get a hit with that gun. It's a very powerful gun.
Yeah.
A front line there sort of breaking. And we coming up. Coming up. This is my turn now, isn't it? This is my turn 3. So I'm starting to take some shots with the 88 at the top now. My half squad gets in with the machine guns, so I've got another, but he gets killed there. Try to go too far. I think he rolls very low, wipes that half squad out. So that was a complete waste of time, that running from the other building. Entire force destroyed.
Right.
A little bit of final fire from him. And then it's my route to safety. And then we got again, wall of infantry. That's the plan. And I think I've got something pretty much everywhere. Yeah. And I haven't got anything in the foxhole, but there is a full squad and a medium machine gun in S3. The whole idea was that in U1, I'd have had that squad with the 7.0 leader and the light machine gun would have been over there, and it would have been a much better position. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Anyway, his turn. So he preps. He does an opportunity fire there. I think that might be. Yeah, that's the bazooka.
So this is you've got 2 turns left from the Americans here. This looks like you're in a good position here.
I thought that. Yeah. So. And I'm thinking a little bit, was a lot of prep fire going on. Is that a mistake on his part? He needs to be moving, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, Toby would be the first one to tell you,
Yeah.
not to prep fire, but to kind of like, you know, that move is more valuable. But anyway, he's closing in on these frontline units, isn't he? He's preparing, isn't he? Getting concealed behind to move in against the gun. What I thought was very clever, he's on both levels of that sort of factory-like building. So I can't sort of fire at both of them necessarily.
Right. Did you think about firing into L6, like just as a acquisition shot to kind of...
Well, I did think about it. I kind of thought, because it's very, you know, it's double close. I thought I'm better off relying on that and not malfunctioning the gun. I'm trying to be cautious with firing the gun, I suppose.
But your gun's marked as malfunctioned in K6. Is that not malfunctioned?
Oh, right. Okay. So that's what's just happened then. I've just fired for acquisition, haven't I?
Right. Okay.
Malfunctioned. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see it on the screen. Yeah, I've just rolled a 6 on a ticket. Yeah.
Oh,
so what you were suggesting I do is exactly what I've just done.
Okay. Yeah. Bad move. I would never have done that.
Would you not?
No, I'm joking. Not if I know I'm going to roll a double 6.
So I rolled double 6, and I thought, that is a shame. That is a shame.
And what was the victory condition was?
So I've got to have an unbroken crew in possession of a gun.
Not necessarily a malfunction. It can be a malfunction gun.
It can be a malfunction gun. So now it becomes really dangerous to try and repair it.
Right.
Because potentially, you know, the crew at the moment is still potentially in a winning position.
Yep.
So anyway, let's see what happens. So a little bit of advancing fire to see what one of my squads breaks. I think. Right, and the squad with the medium machine gun as well.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but that's an additional squad. Okay, so there's still a squad with a medium machine gun in there.
And you got another squad still in U2.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Then he advances in. So I got very little answer. My whole answer is the 88 is going to decimate anyone who moves into that L6 hex, and that is obviously not going to happen now.
At this point, on your rally phase, I'm assuming, is this his movement phase or is this his advanced phase?
I think this is his advanced phase. So, this is his advanced phase.
Would you go with this is an interesting question here. Do you go for the risk of the repair, which obviously unconceals you?
Yeah.
But if you get that repair, that looks a pretty good shot, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or do you keep the concealment?
I think you've got to keep the concealment. I think.
But the thing is, even if you keep concealment, presumably you're gonna die to a bump and then an advance and a.
Yeah, I guess so.
Combat. So
I don't think there's a right answer, is there? I mean, I think there is a right answer. There's a mathematically correct answer, isn't there? Yeah, I suppose if you're going to die anyway.
Yeah. Then going for the repair.
Guess you're better off to that 1 in 6 chance of getting the gun back and blasting them. Yeah. Okay, but the bottom looks lost.
Yep.
But the top is still to be fought for. There's still a squad in U2. There's still a squad with a medium machine gun.
Yep.
In S3, the gun's still in good order. It's in place. So at the moment, I think this could work out. So. So these are advances, and it's now my last turn. Right. I'm worried about him breaking the gun, breaking the crew now in the end of turn 4. So it doesn't look like I tried to repair the gun. Okay, so he's prep firing. I'm prep firing, sorry. Because I'm in foxholes, I haven't got much choice really. Get a very good shot, break the squads there. Yeah. I start to think, do you know what? This could happen, you know.
Yeah, I can see you getting the victory lap ready.
I'm getting excited. I'm getting very excited. Okay, get a couple of good shots back at me, but it doesn't really do any harm. Okay, the crew's broken on the left-hand side, so that's that in defensive fire. He's got a few routes, and I'm moving in, trying to just be in his way as much as possible. I think I even get the squad back in S3. Yeah, right. The squad's back in S3. Right. And now it's his turn. So let's see what happens. doing some regular prep fire. Again, he could have won just from that shot.
Yeah.
He takes a prep fire from U4, which surprised me, actually.
Right.
I think he's trying to clear a gap, isn't he, through
Right.
U5. And can't remember what he rolls, but I seem to pass the morale check.
Yep.
So I think at this point, Toby's thinking that he might not win this.
Yep.
There's a little bit of a game going on the left-hand side, ways that it might be able to support the other side. I can't remember the D. Oh, he's trying to run a few guys off. But as he's doing that, I'm deliberately not going to fire at them. I'm thinking he's just trying to get me to fire at them. Same here. I've worked out this guy can't really get anywhere unless he goes up there. That's right. That's where I take.
Right.
Do I take a shot?
Looks like he takes a shot.
Yes. Yeah. I'm taking a shot there. And so then he goes around he sends these guys this way. Again, none of this, I don't think really. Oh, he gets into there. That threw me. I didn't expect him to get into there.
You didn't expect him to even just go once again. You're still surprised.
So, what do I fire at him? I fire at him from somewhere. Let's have a look.
So hang on. So you didn't take the shot. Hang on. So did you have that? You could have.
I can go back.
Yeah. If you can, because potentially there would have been a shot then from the medium machine gun into R4.
Yeah.
So
definitely. Oops, I'm going the wrong way now, aren't I? So yeah, definitely I could have taken a shot there, and that would have been a really good idea.
Right. But then you've got this big stack here to worry about.
I have got this big stack to worry about. Yeah,
right.
That's right. So he gets in, but with a late CX.
Right.
It doesn't look like so I don't fire at him.
Presumably there was a shot there as well from M5 as well. In the smoke.
Yeah, but they're in the smoke, aren't they? Yeah. Wouldn't have been very good, but it would have been better than not taking it.
Right.
That's true. So I got some residual because he starts to move around. This guy gets to there.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I'm laying down, putting down my fire lane stuff.
The gun hasn't fired yet.
He's in good order. The gun hasn't fired. These guys come. They go through the fire lane. Now, okay, the gun turns now.
Right.
Fires.
Nice shot.
Yeah, and it breaks that lot, which is nice. And I think have I kept rate of fire?
You rolled a 3. No,
to hit. No, I haven't kept. No, that was the ones I haven't. It breaks them, so that's at least good. But I'm still surrounded. It's very, it's like playing Toby. I always feel like you're surrounded.
Yeah.
But this,
just like playing Toby.
But this is the cherry on the cake.
The
hero,
yeah.
the DC.
Yeah.
And he said from the beginning of the game, this was his plan to have the hero with a DC in range of this gun.
Right.
Goes to there, obviously passes all the residual, places the DC.
Did you? Oh.
Double one.
Oh, hey, what's the double one? The double one is you attacking him.
I think so, yeah.
This is.
No. Okay, so it goes.
It goes
yeah,
off.
so that was me attacking him, but
he
survives whatever happens, it goes off, yeah.
Right. Oh. Wow.
But it was a very good game. And you could see there I made a couple of mistakes in that last turn by slightly miscalculating or misreading him and stuff. But it was very good, and I was quite pleased it kind of went to that point. And you had to do some risky things as well in the last turn.
Yeah.
It could have gone differently. That guy going through T1.
Yeah.
He got into T. He wasn't instrumental in the win, but he could. He might have been. I don't know why. I can't remember now how R2. Right, they get broken as well. I think with the final fire shot from S3.
Right.
They break. Yeah. So actually, it was quite close.
Yeah,
if the DC hadn't worked, he'd have had one squad, good order,
and a couple of leaders into close combat, I suppose.
And perhaps a couple of leaders. Yeah.
And was it good order crew?
They had to be unbroken. I think it says. It's non-broken German crew. So even close combat, if I'd have survived, it would have been a win.
Yeah,
that was a very good game, and and in some respects, quite a simple scenario. And I sometimes think there should be, kind of more of that. Like sort of simple, but get them done in a couple of hours or whatever. And that was very nice.
Yeah, very good. Well played for taking him on, and again, well played for Toby. No shame in losing to Toby in his own scenario.
No.
And you can blame whatever you read in the defence manual as well.
Yes. I mean, that was rubbish, that defence manual. And I've followed all the advice, you know what I mean?
All right, so that's enough about what you thought, Martin. Let's hear about Toby's views of how you lost this
Yeah.
scenario.
You've heard from the master, now let's hear from Toby.
So there's actually a bit of a story behind my scenario, the only one I've so far designed, 5-0 sync. I mean, my aim was to provide a simple but challenging scenario with some interesting choices and decisions for both sides. The Germans have to decide where to defend and how to use their dummies best. And the US has to make a sort of decision early on about how to split their force, which board edge to come on, and taking out 88s, a couple of 88s is difficult. How do they lay fire on them or approach them from different angles so that the covered arc has to keep switching. And originally I meant there to be two scenarios actually, which is why I put it on one of the starter kit boards. I wanted there to be a scenario for normal ASL and one for starter kit, but I never got round to doing the starter kit version. I guess without the concealment counters, I was thinking of perhaps having simultaneous setup for the Americans and Germans. But I don't know if I'll ever get around to doing the starter kit version. And one of my other aims in designing the scenario was to tempt in new players, perhaps indeed the sons of existing ASL players, because the scenario itself is inspired by a mission called in the game 5-0 Sync in the Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway computer game, which was published by Gearbox Games in 2008. And was the last in a trilogy, an excellent, superb series of sort of first-person tactical shooters, where you would have to actually command fire groups and assault groups, not just blast away like Call of Duty. So my idea was that a player might be able to say to his son, "Oh, that Brothers in Arms games you were playing? Oh yeah. Have a go at this game of ASL. It's got that mission in 5-0 sync," and possibly some of the actual leaders, their names could have been issued as counters to gain more young interest. But the research for the scenario I did from the Hell's Highway book by Tim Saunders. And I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. I think it's probably, it's a challenging scenario. Perhaps it's harder for sort of American average players. I think you need to. It will test your attacking skills. Let's put it that way. But that was the idea. But the computer game came out 2008, so that was 14 years ago, and no one's ever heard of it now, but it exists, it's out there, and you could always get a copy of it somehow and fire up the Xbox and play 5-0 sync, which represents the action for the scenario. That's it.
So part one of Toby's Pillbox tips. So here we go, Toby's Pillbox tips.
Okay, so today I'm going to look at pillboxes, and I'm going to split this advice into two sessions. So this is part one, because I think pillboxes deserve a bit more time, particularly to I'm going to look at the sort of standard use of pillboxes today, and then I'm going to look at some more sort of wacky things next time, because what I found is that in my games, I would say the majority of the time, my pillboxes don't point towards the enemy at all. So let's look at the main unique aspects of pillboxes and their applications. And for the purposes of examples, I'm going to use a scenario, actually, just one board of a scenario that I'm hoping Dave, with his technical know-how, can use to provide some illustrations for viewers. And the scenario is called the the Chernichivo Shuffle, Schwerpunkt 110. I'm looking at board 49 and the German setup who have 2 pillboxes. So the first thing to say with pillboxes is they're immune to small arms. Okay, it's one of the most critical things about them, which means you don't have to face them towards the enemy. Yes, they're good cover, but if they're pointing away from the enemy, you can't do anything to them. So let's imagine you've got a pillbox and you want to cover the road on board 49 from I8 to I10. Okay, you're going to put a pillbox in I7. So, the Russians are coming on. You do not face the pillbox towards J7 I8 because it can be shot at from J9. Your only purpose is to cover the road, so you point the pillbox towards H7 I8, pointing away from the enemy, still covering the road, so it's immune to his fire and can achieve its objective. So that's what you've got to think. When you're immune to small arms, you don't want to be, facing the enemy. If you can achieve your objective in some fashion, a key hex pointing away from the enemy, but still covering the hexes you want to cover, that is what you want to do. Now, secondly, this doesn't really need illustration, but let's imagine there's this pillbox in I7 with a fire lane. Okay, let's just imagine that. Now, one of the standard ways to stop that occurring is to run a tank into its hex. But the great thing about pillboxes is there is no triple point blank fire. And the main consequence of that is that you can never be frozen. Someone can never sleaze freeze you if you're in a pillbox. They can't do the Japanese banzai, they can't human wave you. Your guys in there, your gun, or your chaps, they can always shoot out through that covered arc. And that's critical to remember. And that's another advantage of pillboxes. Number 3, okay, so you get some free hip with pillboxes because the contents start hip. And the pillbox starts hip as well. It's usually revealed, unless it's PTO, it's usually revealed as soon as there's a line of sight to it. But what you can do with this is you can basically hip normal infantry in open ground, at least at the start of the game until there's a line of sight to them. I think that's unique, actually. I don't think that can occur any other time. So what you can do is you can do ambushes, okay? Surprising things. So let's look at this board again. One of the things that the Russians often do is looking at the board from as if they're entering, is they sweep along the what would it be? The east edge, okay? So the left-hand side, down where the buildings are, around P10, okay? So they'll often set 3 squads up there and charge up to the buildings in J9, okay? Now, what you can do is set up a pillbox in L5, okay, facing M6, L6. And what you can do then is, and this is what you're praying for, is that the first thing he enters is what he thinks is a safe unit. So he charges on the left flank as he's looking at it. And he goes like bypass P9, yeah, into O10. Oh, suddenly he sees your pillbox in L5, 6 hexes away, light machine gun perhaps, 8-1 leader. You're giving him a 6-3 shot. Even if he brings on some other units first and sees that pillbox, he's still not going to be running into O10 or bypassing O9, is he? Or N9 for that matter. So you've slowed him down, effectively slowing him down a turn. Now then, the next thing to tell you about pillboxes is that if you connect them to trenches, they become bunkers. Pillboxes are very difficult to get out of unless there's a connecting trench. So let's imagine this pillbox of ours in L5, okay? You don't just put it on its own, you put a trench in K6, J5 and I6, okay? So those guys, once they revealed themselves and done their little ambush, slowed them down for one turn, they can bug out straight down into that trench in K6 and back into your main line of defense. So, bunkers, trenches should nearly always connect to pillboxes if you've got the option. And lastly, don't forget the possibility of what I'm calling dummy pillboxes, okay? Where, because the contents are hip, right? He doesn't know if there's any men in it or not. Then everyone always assumes there is, but suppose there isn't. Suppose you totally want to stop your enemy getting somewhere, or you might think about all that'll happen is he'll smoke it on turn 1. So, you can leave it empty, and he dumps loads of smoke on it, and there's no one in it. But let's look at our example again. One of the things the Russians often try to do in this scenario is get hulled down behind the hex in I9. Okay. Suppose you put a pillbox in J9 facing I8, I9, and suppose it's empty, right? Is he going to be brave enough to charge a KV down there and go hull down, pointing his arse back at you to point blank range, given that you've got a 50L gun that might be in there? He may well not be brave enough, take balls of steel, as they say. But of course, the pillbox could be completely empty and the gun's elsewhere. All you're trying to do is slow him down on turn 1. So always bear in mind what I'm calling the dummy pillbox. Of course, it's a real pillbox, but inside there's just a few helmets stuck on broomsticks. In fact, you can always start off with a dummy pillbox. He gets smoked or does whatever he wants to it, shoots it up, and then if it's next to a trench, you can put some men in later. That's also an option. Okay, so that's basic pillbox use. We'll go on to some more unusual ideas next time.
All right, so always good to hear from Toby, and very, very good tips as always. Martin, what do you think about pillboxes? How well do you use them?
I really like pillboxes because I like the way that you can be really, really sneaky with them, with trenches in particular. Right. Even the
bunkers,
the bunker thing, and because you can slide down off hills, can't you, and disappear out of line of sight and all that kind of stuff. And they're really good for rallying because I think they get the rally bonus of a building, don't they? You can only get one unit at a time usually, right. unless it's a bigger pillbox, but that's unusual. It's normally only one multi-man camp or one squad that you can get in them. Yeah.
Always good. Yeah, I always feel like they kind of telegraph your position, and a bit like Toby says, it does force the opponent to kind of decide what avenue of attack they're going to make. But I always feel like I wish the covered arc would be a little bit wider. It always feels like it's not quite wide enough for me. But it's always
exactly. But the thing is that you're very safe out of your covered arc as well, aren't you? I mean, they're only essentially stone buildings if you're firing at them from the front, but from the back, they're immune to small arms fire, aren't they? Right. And stuff. They're not immune to anti-tank fire.
That's right.
Which I think is often the best way to attack them.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to have a tank, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Okay. So we'll get part 2 of that very soon. In the meantime, Toby, thank you very much for all what you've done for us. And Martin, well played. Everybody, we are looking forward to the semi-finals of the Paper Mail tournament. And next week, we're going to take a look at the Hasmo stuff, as well as some other bits and pieces, I'm sure. So until then, Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.